Hi there, welcome to the Healing Migraines Naturally podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Leslie Caesar, and I am a licensed naturopathic doctor, former chronic migraine sufferer, and I work with women all over the United States who have chronic migraines and want to stop getting migraines, restore their health, and wean off of their prescription medication and do it all without having to take fistfuls of supplements. So welcome to the podcast. Today's topic is, are my migraines and my heartburn connected? I wanted to talk about this week because I actually have two clients that I'm working with currently that used to have a significant amount of heartburn, are taking proton pump inhibitor medication or PPIs like Prilosec or Nexium, and they are feeling so much better that they are weaning off of those medications. Heartburn is one of the most common symptoms that Americans experience, and in fact, this type of medication, the proton pump inhibitor medication, or like I say, the Prilosec, the Nexium medications, these are a massive market for the pharmaceutical industry. So this is a $4 billion market. So a lot of people are taking these medications. So worldwide, just over a third of all proton pump inhibitor medications are taken by North Americans. Now, North Americans, those are going to be Canadians, Americans, and Mexicans. The United States or Americans probably make up the vast majority of the consumers of this product, but the total population of North America is about 7.5% of the world's population, and we North Americans are taking over a third of the proton pump inhibitors. Okay, so there's a lot of people taking these proton pump inhibitors, Prilosec, Nexium, etc., because a lot of people are experiencing heartburn, reflux. A lot of people are a little confused as to, is this heartburn that I have? Is it reflux? What's going on here? So in general, heartburn refers to a burning sensation that seems to be coming from the stomach and seems to be sort of in the chest. So our esophagus runs, from the throat down to our stomach. And our stomach is located right under our sternum, or right under our rib cage, right in the kind of the center of our upper abdomen. And from our mouth to our stomach is our esophagus. And so a heartburn symptom is a burning sensation, could be in the stomach, could be in the esophagus, which would feel like it was coming from the chest. A lot of people with severe heartburn, they think they might actually be having a heart attack because the pain is kind of in that area. The other thing that can go along with heartburn is a refluxing of food itself, or people might feel the acid coming up, or they might actually have food coming up as well that's combined with acid. So sometimes people will have it so severe that when they lay down, particularly like to go to sleep at night, they can feel that acid sort of rolling up their esophagus and into their throat. And so a lot of people will have sort of like a scratchy throat or a cough, particularly at night. And that's due to the acid irritating the esophagus and even the throat if it gets up that high. So unfortunately, this is a very common symptom that people experience. And so what are people doing, right, to try to ease their suffering? They're taking these PPI medication or proton pump inhibitor medication like Prilosec or Nexium. So this is, like I say, it's a very common symptom, particularly that Americans experience. And it's so common that most people think that it's actually normal. Okay, so if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, you might remember one of my favorite episodes of the entire podcast. So my audio My audio podcast conversation partner is Mary, who is the wonderful moderator of my free Facebook group, Healing Migraines Naturally with Leslie Caesar ND. Feel free to join us over there if you're not there with us already. But Mary is my conversation partner on those audio podcasts. And so when we were just sort of first starting out, one of our first podcasts, and you have to understand, when Mary and I do these podcasts, this is not scripted. This is not rehearsed. She and I, jump on the line together, and we might, just for like a couple minutes, 5 minutes, kind of just review what are some of the trending topics in the Facebook group? What are some of the hot issues? And then we say, okay, yeah, we'll talk about this. And then we just kind of go for it. Okay. So I was talking about proper digestive function on this particular podcast. And I just made this kind of what I thought was an offhand remark that, we should eat our food, and then we're going to have a bowel movement at, some later point in time. And we really shouldn't feel anything in between. Like, we shouldn't be experiencing all of these things going on in our digestive tract, like heartburn and belching and gas and bloating and gurgling and, like all this crazy stuff. We should just be like, oh yeah, I feel hungry. I'm going to eat my meal. We should eat, and then we should have a bowel movement and really not be that aware of anything in between. So I was just kind of making an offhand comment to this regard. And Mary was like, what? Are you serious? She was like blown away by this statement. And she and I still chuckle about it today, because I, sometimes forget that, most people, they are experiencing symptoms and they don't realize that they're experiencing symptoms. They think it's normal. They think it's, normal to have a piece of pizza and get heartburn afterwards. Or they think, oh, well, I'm getting older. Isn't this what happens when you get older? It's so many times people don't realize that they're actually experiencing symptoms. And so in that moment, it was like this, just like this spontaneous, I'm not supposed to have heartburn? That's a symptom? I thought that was normal, right? So we kind of went into this whole thing. So yeah, this is a symptom. Okay. So our stomach makes acid to break down our food, to assist in the digestive process. Okay, there are other things that are required to break our food down, but proper acid in the stomach is critical. Okay, and so the acid that our stomach makes is a pH of 1. That will take paint off of your car. Okay, that's how acidic it is supposed to be inside of our stomach, so that we can properly break our food down and properly prepare the food in the stomach, so that when it goes to the small intestine, it's properly prepared, because the small intestine is going to do other things with the food. Okay, our digestive process is a multi-step process that starts in your mouth, right? So it's like we have to have a pH of 1 in the stomach to properly prepare our food. Okay, so you eating a piece of pizza, okay, that's not a pH of 1. I mean, it's a little acidic, for sure, right? But that's nowhere near a pH of 1. Okay, so let's think about this a little bit, okay? Because people eat pizza, they have tomato sauce, they have something that maybe is a little bit spicier than what they're used to. They have onions, right? These are some of the common foods, right? People will say, oh, that food is too acidic for me, right? It's giving me heartburn. It's so acidic. Not relative to what should be going on in your stomach, right? Your stomach is like taking the paint off of your car, okay? You could put a piece of pizza on the hood of your car. It's not going to really take the paint off your car, okay? It's not the food that's generating the heartburn, okay? But nevertheless, people are experiencing this heartburn, right? And heartburn is very uncomfortable. You can have mild heartburn that you can kind of tough out. But if people are going to take something like a Prilosec or a Nexium, they're having severe heartburn, and it can be very unpleasant. And especially because when we lay down flat, right, and our esophagus is in line with our stomach, and we don't have sort of gravity pulling down on our stomach acid and kind of keeping it in our stomach, when we lay down, right, that acid can roll back into the esophagus, and then that's going to be very unpleasant and interfere with people's ability to sleep, right? And so when people get to this point, this is where they might be getting a prescription from their doctor, or they're going into Walgreens, CVS, and they're just buying it over the counter, right? And so they're taking these PPI medications. And what is this medication actually doing? Okay, so it's a proton pump inhibitor. Okay, so what's happening inside of our stomach to make the stomach acid is a proton pump. Okay, so that's how our stomach is making the acid. It's pumping the protons, and that's making the acid. Okay, so the proton pump inhibitor is shutting that down. So it's not going to completely eliminate your stomach's ability to make stomach acid, but it's going to diminish your stomach's ability to make stomach acid. So instead of a pH of 1, it's going to be maybe a 3 or 4. Okay, so it's still going to be acidic. It's not going to be a pH of 7, which is a neutral pH, but it's not going to be a pH of 1, because that proton pump, I mean, there's uncountable numbers of proton pumps in your stomach, right? So they're maybe, if instead of running at 100%, they're going to run at 50%. And so the amount of stomach acid is going to be diminished within the stomach. You're going to get a little bit of an anatomy lesson and a physiology lesson. Okay, so again, this is not like naturopathic woo-woo stuff. You can read about this in any medical anatomy or physiology textbook. Okay, so your medical doctor knows this. Okay, over here is my bookcase with all of my books from naturopathic medical school, and we have to take all of the same medical sciences that the medical doctors take. So I had to take anatomy, I had to dissect a cadaver, neuroanatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pathology, microbiology, embryology, all of those, what are called the basic sciences in medicine, all of those I had to take too, and there's only one textbook for those. Okay, so I have all those textbooks that your medical doctor has, and so this is what I'm going to walk you through. So there's what is called a sphincter between your stomach and your esophagus. Okay, so the body has sphincters throughout the body. A sphincter is a ring of muscle, and sphincters are used to close things off. Okay, so when our body wants to close one part off from another, it's going to use a muscle ring called a sphincter. Okay, and so there's a sphincter, but at the very top of your stomach, right where the esophagus comes in and dumps into your stomach, there's a sphincter called the cardiac sphincter. And so when you haven't eaten, when you don't have food in your stomach and your body is like, okay, we can eat at any time, that sphincter is going to relax. And then when you eat something, right, and you swallow the food and it goes down into your esophagus squeezes the food down, that sphincter opens up, and the food goes into your stomach. Okay, now your stomach starts making stomach acid because you've eaten something and it wants to break the food down properly. So it starts making stomach acid. Now, when the pH of the stomach gets low enough, that's the signal for that sphincter to close. Okay, because if you've got a pH of 1 in your stomach that can take paint off of your car, you don't want that to go back up into your esophagus. Your stomach is lined with mucus, so it can handle a pH of 1. Your esophagus isn't. Okay? So if a pH of 1 acid hits your esophagus, it's really going to hurt. It's really going to damage your esophagus. It's not going to damage your stomach because your stomach is designed for that. Right? So we have this sphincter that when the stomach acid increases and the pH drops, that signals the sphincter to close, and it should close tightly because, as I'm sure you know, right, once we eat that meal, the stomach starts churning, right? So it starts churning and mashing and squeezing the food and getting the acid all mixed up in there. So if we didn't have a sphincter there, if we couldn't close off the top of the stomach from the esophagus, as the stomach is squeezing and churning and mixing our food, it would naturally be pushed back up into our esophagus. And so that would be very unpleasant, right? So we have a sphincter that closes off and keeps the food in the stomach. So if that sphincter is closed properly, you will never have heartburn, okay? I want to let that sink in. You would never experience heartburn if that sphincter closes all the way, right? Now, let me do a little caveat. You could have a problem in the stomach. So you could have an ulcer in your stomach. You could have a defect within that lining of the stomach that protects things, and then your stomach is going to start burning, okay? But actual reflux of acid into your esophagus that's burning and hurting so bad, that's rolling up, that when you lie down, you can feel that acid roll up your esophagus, that's coming up into your throat and causing you to cough at night and giving you a scratchy throat. None of that is going to happen if that sphincter is closing properly, okay? So when we have all of that heartburn and reflux occurring, that's telling us the sphincter isn't closed, right? Now, your medical doctor knows this because he or she had to sit through those same classes that I had to sit through, and they have the exact same textbooks, and they had to take board exams to cover all of this, just like I had to take board exams to cover all of this to get my naturopathic medical license, right? So it's not like they don't know this, okay? The problem is, in conventional medicine, they don't think about in the way that I think about things. They just think about, oh, you're having this symptom. How do we turn this symptom off? So even though they are learning all of these basic sciences, they're not applying it to you when you go in for your appointment. In fact, my biochemistry professor, he had previously taught at a conventional medical school, and he was a really, really passionate biochemist. He had a PhD. His PhD was actually in genetics, so he taught us both biochemistry and genetics, and he used to teach at a medical school. And he would, like, once a week, he would tell us, oh, I love teaching you guys. I love being here with you naturopaths because you actually apply biochemistry. It was very satisfying for him to teach us this because in our perspective, we're looking at, okay, if you're experiencing this symptom, what is not functioning optimally? Like, how would it be possible for somebody to be experiencing this symptom, right? So again, I'm just looking at the known anatomy, the known physiology, the known biochemistry, and it becomes very obvious that if somebody is laying down at night to go to sleep and they're experiencing this burning rolling up their esophagus, the sphincter is not closed, okay? So unfortunately, because culturally, we don't think like this, right? Culturally, it's like, oh, I've got something unpleasant. How do I shut this unpleasantness off, right? That's how we approach things. That's how the conventional medicine approaches things, the dominant medical model approaches things. So these proton pump inhibitors, they used to be prescription only. Now you can get them over the counter, right? So why not just go to Walgreens and CVS and buy some over the counter and take it? That's going to prevent your stomach from making that full pH of 1 stomach acid. Maybe it's a 3 or a 4. Now, what is that really doing here? So what happens is the sphincter is going to close even less than it was before because a pH of 3 or 4 is not low enough to signal that sphincter to close. That sphincter is going to stay open more frequently and more frequently. You're actually going to have more and more refluxing acid up into your esophagus when you shut down your stomach acid production, but you won't feel it. That's the thing. Because if it's just like a pH of 3 or 4, well, it doesn't hurt the esophagus that much, right? It's not like a pH of 1 on the tissue. It's is not as acidic, and so it's not hurting your esophagus as much, and so you don't feel it as much. And so to you, it's like the problem is solved, right? So on a day-to-day basis, now I feel better, right? However, what if I eat something that's a little bit more acidic? What if I do have something with tomato sauce on it? What if I have a vinaigrette dressing on something, right? Now, if I'm eating something that actually does put a little bit more acid into my stomach, and that sphincter is not closing, it's closing even less effectively than it was before, well, now the pH is going to be a little bit lower, and then when it refluxes back into my esophagus, now I'm going to feel it again, right? So now the food is becoming a problem, right? Now I've got to avoid all of these foods that I used to enjoy eating, right? And then over time, as this problem starts to pile up, usually people will start to experience even more heartburn. The sphincter, right, it's not getting that signal to close. It's a muscle. Muscles need to exercise. So if we're not sending that signal to close, right? Like every time we eat and that stomach acid starts ramping up, we should be signaling that sphincter to close. And it's like, okay, exercise, exercise, exercise. The muscle is getting worked. If we're not sending that signal, what happens to the muscle? It starts to atrophy, right? It's like, well, okay, I guess I really don't have to do too much. It starts to get weaker, right? So then let's say that it is getting a signal. Let's say, right, we eat a whole bunch of tomatoes, or we have some orange juice, or we have some vinaigrette. Oh, I'm supposed to close. Uh-oh, there's enough acid in here to actually, signal for me to close, but I haven't been working out. I can't do it, right? It's like, I'm not going to be able to close this anyway, okay? You can see how this is going to start to snowball. And if you've been listening to the podcast, I talk about this phenomenon a lot with a variety of medications, right? Because if we are suppressing what the body is trying to do, in this case, we're suppressing the stomach acid production, we're not getting to the root, and the body is going to continue to get into a worse and worse state of health. Okay, so now what turned into, I'm going to start taking this Prilosec now I need to take Tums on top of this, right? So over the years, as people consume these proton pump inhibitor medications, very frequently they have to now add on a Tums daily or every other day, right? Because this sphincter is just hanging out, right? It's pretty weak. It's not, now I got to do Tums. All of these acid blocking medications, these are the top selling medications in America. They're right up there. These are massive, massive money makers for the pharmaceutical industry. This is how frequently people are experiencing these types of symptoms, okay? So now let's talk about the long-term effects of this, okay? So we have to have stomach acid to absorb our minerals. This is what no one is telling you, okay? So we have to have a low pH in the stomach in order to optimally absorb the minerals that are in our food, okay? And not just like the magnesium and the iron. I'm talking about all of the 70 to 80 trace minerals that are in our food. There are big minerals that the body needs a lot of, like sodium and potassium and magnesium and calcium. And then we have trace minerals that the body needs a little bit of, like selenium and manganese and zinc and copper. But all of these minerals, we have to have a low stomach pH in order to properly absorb them. So when you look at the Prilosec box, if you're taking this medication, I'm not saying this to ramp up your anxiety, okay? So I'm trying to be very careful with this, and I always try to be very careful on the podcast because I know that most of the people listening to the podcast are taking medication. I know you don't want to take the medication, I know that you're only taking the medication because you feel stuck between a rock and a hard place, between suffering and trying a whole bunch of things that didn't work for you, right? So I totally get this. So please, I am not trying to give you anxiety. I'm not trying to ramp up the panic. But if you're taking this medication, I want you to get the box out. And I want you to look on the back of the box. And I want you to look at the little notice that says, do not take this medicine longer than 14 days. People are being prescribed these medications by their doctor. Their doctor should not write the prescription for more than 14 days. This is the prescribing guidelines. Now that you can buy it over the counter, they put it on the fine print on the box. Why is this? Because they know, right? You can open up a pharmaceutical textbook and read about this, okay? This is not like secret woo-woo naturopathic stuff. This is just known information. They know that you have to have stomach acid to absorb your minerals. And so if you take this for a long period of time, it's going to severely inhibit the absorption of minerals from your food. Now, number one, every cell in the body needs minerals to function properly. But think about your bones, okay? Your bones have to have minerals. Osteoporosis is a very serious problem, but it takes decades to develop. And so in the short term, as you take this medication, you're going to become mineral deficient, guaranteed. You are putting yourself in a position to develop osteopenia and osteoporosis over the next few decades because your body doesn't want to be mineral deficient. That's the last thing that your body wants. And so if we're not getting enough minerals coming into our bloodstream from the food that we're eating because our digestion is poor, right, and we just can't absorb those minerals, if those minerals are not coming into our body, well, guess what? Our bones are a massive mineral storage organ. So our body is always trying to do the best it can in the environment that we put it in. So if we're not getting those minerals into our body from our food because we don't have adequate stomach acid to properly absorb them, then our body says, well, today I need the sodium and the potassium and I need the calcium. Well, where am I going to get this? I need some more magnesium. I need some manganese. Well, let me get it from my bone. I need it today, right? And so I've got like this major organ, my skeleton, that's full of minerals. So let me get it from there because I want to stay alive today. I want to function my best today. I'm going to do my best today. And hopefully, someday soon I'll be able to absorb my minerals and I'll be able to put the minerals back in my bones. But right now I need it. So I'm going to take it out of my bones. And when this occurs for decades, we wonder, how did I get osteoporosis? How did this happen? I went in to the doctor every year and got blood work done, and my doctor said everything looked great. Every year he checked my calcium. It was always normal. How do I have osteoporosis now? Because your body is going to do whatever it needs to do to keep the calcium level up in your blood. It's going to take it from your bones if it needs to, right? We're going to stay alive today and hope that we turn the problem around for the future. That's the way that the body operates. So that's why the prescribing guidelines that your doctor should be following, that's why the fine print on the back of the box says don't take this longer than 14 days. 14 days. Do you know how many clients I've had over the years that have been taking Prilosec for 20 years? And no one told them. And they said, well, my doctor prescribed this, right? I mean, what? My doctor knows I'm taking this. How come he never told me? I don't know what to tell you, right? It's documented. It's on the drug label. It's on the box, right? Your doctor knows this, right? But your doctor doesn't know how to improve your digestive function and get you out of this problem in the first place. That's the problem, Okay. So I give you all of this little anatomy lesson and physiology lesson and biochemistry lesson. I hope you enjoyed geeking out with me. I love this kind of stuff. But let's go back to these two clients that I have. Okay, so I thought to talk about this because I have these two clients and they're somewhat similar. So they're about 10 years in age apart. One is in her 50s and one is in her 60s. And both of them have daily head pain. So I work with many clients that have daily head pain to some level, right? Could be a 1 some days, could be a 10 some days, right? But they're going to have head pain every day. Both of these clients are taking Prilosec, okay? And they've been taking it for decades. So right away, as soon as they reached out to me, as soon as we did their consult call, because when you book a free consult call with me, I do have you complete a short health questionnaire where I ask you what medication you're taking and what other health concerns that you have. So I knew when I jumped on the consult call with both of these women, and they had listed Prilosec as a medication that they were taking daily, I knew, how long have they been taking this, right? How long have they been suppressing their stomach acid production and potentially not been absorbing the minerals out of their food? Okay, so unfortunately, come to find out that it's been decades for both of them. Both of them were taking additional like Tums, these like acute alkalizing agents, because even though they're taking the full dose of Prilosec every day, they're still experiencing heartburn, at least 3-4 times a week, and they're taking additional Tums. So when we're taking a Tums, we're taking an alkalizing agent. It's like calcium carbonate in Tums, which is an alkaline substance. And so whatever acid our poor little stomach was trying to make, despite that Prilosec trying to prevent it, because that sphincter isn't closing, they're getting that heartburn sensation, right? So, let me take a Tums. Well, now I'm just completely squelching any remaining acid that's in the stomach. It feels better, but that's just because when something is refluxing back into your esophagus, it's not acidic anymore to burn your esophagus, but the reflux is still happening. You're just not aware of it because that sphincter is not closed, okay, because it's too alkaline. So this generated a major blocker. So if you've been listening to the podcast, I talk about the 3 things that we have to do to restore our health so that our body stops making the migraines, right? This is what we actually want. When I started getting chronic migraines, when I was staggering home every other day from work, barely, making it through the front door, like collapsing on the couch, and my husband going, what's good, right? What happened, right? And just forget about the rest of the evening, right? What I wanted was not a medication. I didn't want an abortive medication. I wanted my body to not make these things in the first place. That means we're restoring our health. When we are in a state of health, our body is not generating symptoms like migraines or heartburn or whatever it may be. We just feel good, right? We're living to our full potential. So there are 3 things that we have to do to restore our health, and I call these things the 3 principles. So the first principle is we have to get the nutrients that our cells need to the cells. The second principle is we have to clear metabolic waste material and toxins from the body, from the cells, and then from the body. And then the third principle is we have to restore our resiliency and vitality so that we can weather the migraine triggers that tip us into a migraine, right? We want to have enough resiliency and vitality so that we can be out in the sun and a storm can come through and we can be in a loud concert and we can do all of these things and not get tipped into a migraine, right? So we're not going to be able to get the nutrients, the minerals that our cells need to our cells if we don't have adequate stomach acid. It's not going to happen. So even before I really knew any details about the case of these 2 women, because they told me that they were taking Prilosec, we might have a blocker here, right? So this is the way that I look at things. Okay, you're not feeling good. Your body's generating these migraines, and I'm sure a lot of other symptoms. So we're not in a state of health. Your body wants to be in a state of health more than anything, okay? So I know we need to have these 3 pieces in place for your body to restore itself back to health so that you can feel good again. But if your body isn't doing that, it's because there's a blocker or a missing piece or something not functioning properly within these 3 principles. So if you need to take a PPI, if you have to take a Tums, unfortunately, you've put a blocker within that first principle for yourself. Because that PPI, that Prilosec, that Nexium, is going to prevent your digestive tract's ability to, 1, absorb your minerals properly into your bloodstream. If they don't get into your blood, they're not going to get to your cells, okay? And so we've got a mineral absorption problem, but we also have a larger problem with the digestion because it's not just about the minerals. We need that stomach acid to properly prepare the food for the small intestine, okay? So, digestion starts in the mouth. You've probably heard that, right? So our saliva there's enzymes in the saliva. The saliva starts to break the food down in the mouth. We swallow it. The esophagus pushes it into the stomach. The stomach is making stomach acid and churning it and getting it all mixed up and starting to break it down that way. When it goes into the small intestine, the pancreas squirts digestive enzymes onto the food that are alkalizing. Okay, so as soon as that acidic, the food all mixed up with that acid, as soon as that goes into the small intestine, the pancreas squirts all these enzymes on it to neutralize all that acid because your small intestine doesn't want an acidic lump of food, okay? It wants an alkaline, properly prepared food, and then the digestive enzymes come in and start further breaking the food down. And different points within the small intestine, different things are absorbed. Okay, so this, like we just can't dump the food in the small intestine without it being properly prepared in the stomach. The other critical piece here, frankly, too, all that stomach acid, it kills the bugs that are in the food. Okay, our food is not sterile. Okay, so there's inevitably going to be viruses and bacteria and, mold, fungi, right? It's going to be in our food. Our food is not sterile. So don't you really want to have like a really strong acid in there to like kill anything? Kill the bugs that are in the food, the little bacteria, or if there's like a little virus or a little mold spore in there or something. You want to have enough acid to kill any of that, right? We don't want that. We're just thinking about, I'd like to have a piece of pizza, right? I don't want to have this burning when I'm having a piece of pizza. That's what we're thinking, like, make that go away so I can eat tomato sauce. But all of these downstream effects, okay? And I'm just talking about Prilosec, okay? This is just one aspect of our digestion and how we may have inadvertently, without realizing it, put this blocker or barrier into our digestion. So over the course of our work together with both of these women, I have helped them restore their digestive function. Okay, so we want to get off of these PPIs. We want to have proper stomach acid production. We want to get that pH in the stomach back to 0 because they're feeling better. Okay, they're already feeling better. Both of them already have much fewer migraines, and the severity of their day-to-day pain is much less. But I know they're never going to get to their overall goals if we can't get the nutrients into their body. We've got to have good digestive function. So over the course of our work together, I have very carefully help them restore their digestive function. And I say very carefully because if you go at this gangbusters, if you go at this too heavy-handed and you have chronic migraines and daily head pain, you're going to have a real bad flare. Trust me. Ask me how I know. Okay, so very carefully, we've been working on improving their digestive function and they feel better. one of them told me, I can't believe I used to walk around all the time just feeling so heavy, so bloated, nauseous. I just never felt good. I would eat a little bit and, right, it just would never sit right. She said, I don't remember the last time I've had my lunch, had a sandwich. In fact, she went out to lunch with her family and they ate at like a Jimmy John's. I saw in her diet diary that she had like a Jimmy John's type sub. And I thought, wow, that's a lot of food, And so I was pretty excited to see that she was able to eat like a Jimmy John's sub. And so when I talked to her that week, I asked her about it. She said, yeah, I can't believe I was able to eat like a Jimmy John's, right? Like I don't know when the last time I was able to eat like a full sub sandwich, right? And no uptick in heartburn, stomach felt fine, wasn't bloated, wasn't nauseous, right? She said, I can't believe how good my stomach feels, right? And she means like her whole like abdomen, her whole digestive tract. So these are indicators that her digestion is functioning better. And I made the determination for both of these clients that now they're ready, right? They're ready. We're going to start to wean off of the PPIs. If you do not wean off of PPIs, you're going to have, well, I can't say that, for certain you're going to have this, but most people are going to have horrible rebound heartburn, okay? And so we don't want that. So we have to very carefully wean down on the Prilosec. And so for both of these clients, we started this process this week. So that's why I thought I would talk about this topic on the podcast today. So are your migraines in some way connected to your heartburn? What do you think? Okay. So in a word, yeah, they're connected in the way that everything is connected within the body, right? Our body is a spectacular and miraculous, very, very complex system. And so things are connected to each other. But what happens to people is at the beginning, right, when the heartburn starts, what has happened for most people, what has happened is that their stomach starts having difficulty making the stomach acid, okay? So your stomach needs to have nutrients in order to make your stomach acid. It doesn't make your stomach acid out of Starbucks Frappuccinos and unicorn dust. Your stomach needs specific nutrients to make the stomach acid, okay? Your stomach has to have enough cellular energy or cellular vitality to make the stomach acid. And when it's trying to make stomach acid, if the cell is all littered with all this trash, all this metabolic waste material and toxins, it's not going to function optimally, right? Like if the room is all full of trash, if it's like a scene from Hoarders inside of our cells, like things are not going to go well in there, okay? So what happens at the beginning for people is these things start to decline slowly over time. And slowly over time, the stomach's ability to make stomach acid starts to diminish. And so when it can no longer make enough stomach acid to get that pH down to 1, and that sphincter isn't getting the signal to close and it's staying open, that's when the heartburn starts. Okay? So again, these 3 principles, they are required for the proper functioning of every cell in the body. And so if one cell doesn't have what it needs to function optimally, we don't just drop dead, right? Okay, well, I got another 30 trillion cells. Hopefully they can pick up the slack. But as things start to decline, then the cells start to struggle more and more. And then those cells that make up an organ like your stomach, right now my stomach isn't functioning properly. If my stomach isn't functioning properly and I'm not like killing the bacteria and viruses and mold that's in my food, and I'm not properly preparing it for the small intestine, and then I dump this bacteria-laden food that's not properly prepared for my small intestine, now my small intestine has to work even harder to try to pick up the slack, but it really is not going to be able to, then I'm going to start to have bacterial overgrowth in my small intestine. It starts to snowball from there. Okay. But again, we don't think about things like that. We just want the heartburn to go away. And unfortunately, what people do, again, I know nobody wants to take medication. I know that everybody knows that medication is just a Band-Aid. So then what people do is they go for the so-called natural remedies, okay? But like if you take baking soda, okay, so a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want to take a Tums. I'll take baking soda, right? That's natural. That's a natural remedy. Well, again, baking soda is just, it's not calcium carbonate, but it's it's another alkalizing substance that's just going to neutralize your stomach acid, right? So the natural Band-Aids, right? They are really not getting to the root problem either. They're just sort of, again, it's like a natural Band-Aid instead of a medicine Band-Aid or a medication Band-Aid, and it's really not getting to the root of the problem. So then people try these natural things, and then they say, well, I'm not getting relief, and I got to sleep. I can't be waking up in the middle of the night with this heartburn, right? And so they start taking Prilosec. That further diminishes the absorption of those nutrients, right? And here we go, right? And 20 years later, we struggle to eat food. We can't eat a Jimmy John sandwich when we're out with our family. We eat a little bit and we feel heavy and bloated and we've got gas, and I still have to take Tums even though I'm taking a Prilosec. And now 10 years ago I started getting daily head pain. How'd that happen, right? So all of these things are connected in this way. The good news is that you can turn these things around. So with my clients, I'm using very individualized natural therapies so that we can get the digestive fire burning again. This is the thing. We want to put food in the digestive tract, and then we want to increase the digestive fire so that we can actually break the food down. And as we start to break the food down a little bit better, we get in a little bit more nutrients into the body, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And now we start to generate an upward spiral instead of a downward spiral. And the more nutrients we can start to get into the body, the more waste material we're able to clear, the more vitality the body starts generating. And now we start to generate an upward spiral, and people start feeling better even though they're taking the Prilosec. This is the thing. Both of these clients are taking Prilosec and they're still struggling with heartburn, right? They're still not feeling good. And in fact, it's not just heartburn. It's like, I just don't feel good whenever I eat, right? Now they're actually feeling good. They can eat food, right? And now we're on an upward spiral, and we're talking about getting them off this medication. So I know once we get them off this medication, that upward spiral, right now the upward spiral is kind of like this. Once we can get them off that Prilosec and get their stomach acid properly functioning, getting that lining inside of the stomach rebuilt, getting the sphincter exercised again so that it closes when it gets a signal, right? We got to get a little resistance training, a little weightlifting routine here for this cardiac sphincter. Once we do all of those things, right, their trajectory is going to be like this, okay? This is the type of care that we really need, okay? I know that people are so fed up with the standard medical model, right? That people are so frustrated going in to their doctor and just being, well, now you're not handed a prescription anymore, right? I'm showing my Gen X roots, right? You used to go in and you used to get a piece of paper, not anymore, right? They just send it right to your pharmacy and you get the text from Walgreens that your prescription is ready, right? People don't want that, right? We know that this is just a Band-Aid. We know that this is not an actual solution. So if you're ready to actually have the solution and you're ready to work with an expert to get this turned around, I'm here for you. Book a consult call with me. It's a free call. These other two women booked that call, and now they're on a life-changing journey to restoring their health. And so book that call. You can find the link in the description. and I will be more than happy to talk with you. I will ask you a little bit of information about your health, and if I can't help you, I will tell you that. And if I can help you, I will tell you that too. So I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on things like cardiac sphincters and mucus linings in your stomach, etc., etc. I hope it was interesting for you. And if you are on Prilosec or Nexium, these proton pump inhibitors, and you've been on them for a long time, are they impacting your migraines? Absolutely, they're impacting your migraines. And so let's get you off of these, okay? Let's get you eating pizza again and tomato sauce on your pasta and whatever other foods are irritating you. And let's do it and get you feeling better and get you out of these migraines too. All right. So very good. Let me know in the comments so let me know in the comments if you're taking a PPI and if you've ever tried to get off of them and you've had that rebound. Okay. So again, we have to do this in such a way that you don't have that horrible rebound. You don't have to go through that. So very good. Thanks for joining me today. I will talk to you soon.